and read this political assessment. Now, I'm going to tell you it's pretty heavy, but that's why I thought I would read it. And I want to read my writings from now on because some of them are long and some of them are heavy. But if you don't mind just listening to me read them instead of having to, read them yourself, and maybe you're busy, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're doing other things, just sit and relax and let me do all the work, that's fine. I thought I would make it easier for everybody this way. Now, this particular piece is different than other pieces because I worked with it with a collective of people. So late last year, we got together and we met, and there was several questions that was asked. And so everybody responded. Let's see. So we met in person. We were all asked several questions about our current concerns regarding our locations, political environments, dominant issues of concern, and personal experiences. The feedback was given to me to write an assessment, which took about 6 months to complete with several editorial meetings. We had an in-person meeting a few months ago and approved the final 2024 area assessment by vote. So this is like people in the East Bay, Oakland, but some of this relates to San Francisco, and a lot of this relates to the money involved. And even if you're not in the Bay Area, this is something that you would want to pay attention to. But it's also national politics, and because it has a lot to do with the tech industry and billionaires and how they, the kind of manipulative tactics, but this is also an assessment. So it's not like my other writing that goes into detail of how they do this. So much of my research is inspired by a collective of revolutionaries. I meet with several times a month. They're called the League of Revolutionaries for a New America, or we call it LERNA for short. And it's in this link that I put in the subject line. They support every struggle that holds the government accountable. They host political educational classes. They have several chapters across the country. My committee are involved in Oakland, California, and the East Bay, and they do assessments in politics and political education classes. And I mean, like, I learned from a diverse group of people who are older than me, have been doing organizing, and some of them are like a lot of them are actually longtime union organizers, and they have deep roots in Oakland. They know a lot of history. So this is why I know so much. I'm not from Oakland. Like I've been in Oakland probably close to 15 years now total, but I'm originally born in San Francisco, partially raised in San Francisco, but mostly lived in Pacifica, in the peninsula. And all of those areas were way too expensive for me to afford. So I had to move to Oakland. And I think that what makes you different from being a gentrifier when you move into places like Oakland is you have to get to know the history, get to know the people, and just be a part of the community. Don't try and change the community. You know what I mean? So anyways, they're open to a public meeting, and it's, the next one is called Beyond the Elections. The Political Revolution Continues, sponsored by the League of Revolutionaries for a New America and Hip Hop Congress. That will be held on Saturday, November 16th. At 11 a.m. So if anybody's interested, the link is there and you can RSVP there. I think this is an excellent way if you want to get more involved beyond trying to get into politics last minute. You know, if you got a little frustrated and you're like, I don't even know what's going on, and you want to get more involved and get into community involvement, either, like you can look into this group, or you could start your own group. One thing that we do is we get articles and we come together and we assess the articles that we find interesting, and we read them out loud. Each person takes a turn and we assess that politically. But I really like this group because these people have a lot of experience and a lot of understanding and knowledge. And they're like teachers and professionals. I go on to say I'm transparent about this aspect of my life because I believe it's essential to be transparent when I form ideas and gather perspectives in my shared research. This group of revolutionaries is not the only place I receive inspiration. I scrape various social media apps like TikTok to gauge political engagement and use Twitter X to research local political operations. I also go into Facebook groups and Reddit Oakland groups to gauge public perspective, get inspiration, and give output. Most importantly, I'm open to speaking to anyone of any background and affiliation as long as they are sincere. Speaking to someone with a scripted narrative and purposeful, misleading objective wastes energy and time. So I'm going to go into the present 2024 objective section, and that is the National California and East Bay Area Oakland Centered Political Assessment. This could be such a mouthful. The United States is increasingly embroiled in a revolutionary transformation process. We can no longer sustainably live in old systems. Corporate control of housing has driven rent and housing costs beyond what most people can afford. While housing insecurities grow year after year, corporate politicians plot to ban encampments and criminalize living on the streets as prisons use prison labor to provide consumer goods en masse. All of these issues are connected, and that is just the tip of the iceberg concerning the dangers threatening to shred what little democracy remains nationally and locally. Fascists are focusing offensive strategies locally, using press conferences and media to create political theater along with fears of crime. The ruling class is appearing out of the shadows, funding puppets of propaganda to arouse fear, division, and hate. Their focus is attacking newly elected 2022 progressive leaders with unfounded, expensive recalls while propagating a doom loop narrative. If they can convince everyone to fear their neighbors, fear other neighbors, and better yet, fear new governing tactics that provide social services instead of leaning on police state tactics, then the ruling class accomplishes their goals of keeping the masses divided and weak. With endless streams of doom loop articles and poverty porn videos on social media connecting the dispossessed class to crime, and business closures that are failing due to changes in consumerism before the pandemic, ridiculous political advocates of the ruling class exhaust the public. The goal is to overstimulate the media. With repetitive narratives that do not tell the full story so that people forget what created these issues. By causing chaos in public spaces of debate, it makes all politics look dysfunctional and in need of moderate leadership, funded by right-wing billionaires to save the day. The end goal would undoubtedly defeat optimism and hope within communities, breaking the will of the working class to coordinate and consolidate power with the dispossessed so they can govern and empower themselves. The Oakland City Council did not defund the police, yet they are continuously accused of defunding them. Crime has been rising since the pandemic due to pandemic closures and previous leadership ending crime prevention programs. Yet, current progressive leaders are being blamed. This narrative is influenced by billionaires attempting to manipulate local elections using dark money in a bid to change the state from bourgeois democracy by crushing the electoral process to tyrannical corporate dictatorship employing regional, national, and social media. At the same time, the state of California puts Oakland in virtual receivership to facilitate corporate dictatorship, hiding it being tough on crime policies, advancing Project 2025. 2024 will be a consequential election year locally, statewide, and nationally, defeating Project 2025. That is such a mouthful, I know. Workers cannot afford housing, while necessary consumer good prices rapidly increase, and at the same time, wages are decreasing in some industries. Nearly 50% of US parents need to support their adult children, as multiple generations are not better off than previous generations for the first time in recent history. Part-time contingent jobs are proliferating, while full-time jobs with benefits are not. Workers are increasingly striking and unionizing as major corporations use cunning tactics to prevent labor organizing. Inflation has been blamed for the rising prices of consumer goods and basic life necessities like PG&E and utilities, baby formula and food. Corporations brag about all-time high profits and top executive bonuses as the same corporations tighten the workforce, eliminating hundreds of thousands of jobs, including over 300,000 tech jobs since 2022. Their solution for the working class is to let them eat cereal for dinner. I don't know if you all remember that story, but it's a real story. Daycare can be as expensive as rent or college, forcing many parenting age adults to choose not to have children. At the same time, abortion and birth control rights are being stripped, taking away a woman's family planning options, which rule how well she and her family can live. Deeply defunded public schools are declining attendance and losing qualified teachers in a community fight to keep public schools open. In contrast, charter schools are granted more real estate and public tax dollars with historically little to no oversight as they pick and choose which child is accepted to attend. College degrees are becoming more useless as some companies no longer require them, while millions of Americans are still deeply in debt with student loans in some cases throughout their lifetime. Oakland's homeless population has grown by over, I'm missing a number, my bad. It has grown over a certain percentage since the start of the pandemic, putting the total number of residents living without permanent housing at 5,420. I did just update that number. With heavy politicization of homelessness and cities not properly using housing funds in the state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom passed an executive order to clear homeless encampments, which gave a pass to many cities to criminalize homelessness. That Fresno is one of the top cities in California. They've already arrested and imprisoned over 100 unhoused people. There is little to no support for mental health, drug addiction, and housing in the aftermath of a historic COVID pandemic. Disconnected communities have created mass social illness in which fear and division are easy to manipulate. And for some, self-medication is the only solution. Prop 1 has passed, promising more treatment for mental health and housing from the state, but the outcome is uncertain as it takes money from local governments to provide services. East and West Oakland are like pressure cookers, and the effects of 40 years of job loss, disinvestment, and generational systemic institutional racism, youths are lost without a future to look forward to, and youth development programs like YR Media are in financial limbo. People are turning to social media apps like TikTok and YouTube to organize solutions, while X, formerly known as Twitter, becomes a right-wing, white nationalist echo chamber. The calls for solutions are many and diverse, from decolonized education to bringing back affordable and accessible third spaces, aka public spaces where people can walk locally and gather as a community besides work, school, and home. A climate of hate continues long after Trump's presidency into the 2024 presidential election, where the choice for voters is between Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Harris's popularity has exploded after President Biden stepped down from campaigning for a second term. She plans to give tax cuts to the middle class and assist in building 3 million homes. Still, her stance on immigration, crime, and military spending leans further toward moderate political right-leaning policies. And some people say very far right. Harris has disappointed younger voters with her stance on Palestine. She echoes Israel's right to defend itself without Palestine having any defense. And the decades-old two-state solution with a ceasefire that Israel's leadership has no interest in. Yet her administration continues to arm Israel with more weapons as it has bombed Palestine and allowed far-right settler extremist violence to reign in the region. Mass calls for Palestinian liberation have increased hate towards Muslims, Arabs, and Jews, despite these groups coming together to demand an immediate Israeli ceasefire and humanitarian aid for Gaza. Younger generations are deeply opposed to President Biden's active collaboration with the genocide happening in Gaza, naming him Genocide Joe. It is a harsh reality to discover United States citizens pay for a genocide they don't want while supporting Israel, a client state of the United States that can afford universal health care, while the United States politicians have said for decades, how will we pay whenever health care is brought up? Record-breaking temperatures occur yearly as sea levels rise, along with alarming sea temperatures, and the climate becomes visibly catastrophic. Still, little is being done to reverse climate change. Oil consumption continues to do business as usual, while the Supreme Court has weakened the EPA's power to enforce the Clean Water Act. Coal is coming back to Oakland is being sued for $1 billion for fighting against coal shipped by train directly through its neighborhoods. Coal interests are funding the recall of its mayor and attempting to install a new city attorney. Younger generations recognize an urgent need to save the planet, the environment, and the future. In a battle between private and public property, there is a call for walkable urban spaces, the use of electric bikes, and more public transportation. 2024 has been an intense election year that requires careful consideration from national to local elections. In San Francisco and the East Bay, billionaires and their networks, disguising themselves as neighborhood activists, actively interfere to dominate local elections by funding disinformation, expensive recall campaigns, and attack ads against anyone who works to govern on behalf of the people. Corporate media bias has backed them, with apparent collaboration working with public relations specialist Sam Singer. Humanity is at stake. War is almost imminent. The rights of women, LGBTQ+, disabled, and people of color are on the chopping block of the United States rule, and the environment is in dire need of care with massive industry reforms. Recalls against elected progressive officials have been funded by the billionaire class and created polarization among the working and disenfranchised classes using fear and blame tactics. maneuvering the ruling class seeking to further authoritarian control, the ruling class increasingly has few reasons to maintain systems to help reproduce workers. Artificial intelligence, AI, has opened up new possibilities for future industries and institutions while raising privacy concerns. AI can advance healthcare and science, AI can advance healthcare and science possibilities while alleviating the need for repetitive, laborious work. Still, the ruling class is avoiding the possible space it provides to create new economic standards like universal healthcare, education, and income. The current trends in tech for 2024 have been to downsize staff in anticipation of no longer needing as many workers while sending remote jobs overseas to maintain profits in a slowing economy. Reactionary politics and public relations PR propaganda campaigns are fueled from social media to local news with a narrative that dictates law and order over the unruly working class. Meanwhile, the working class falls further into poverty levels and loses homes. The doom loop narrative is tossed around in media so crime can be blamed for many big name corporate businesses failing, while in truth, stores and malls were failing for years before the pandemic exacerbated the need to go outside to shop. I think some of this is kind of repetitive and I probably could edit it. Sorry. Crafty PR campaigns and doom loop narratives traverse from social media, poverty porn, influencers, into news broadcasts legitimized by journalists, creating more apathy, fear, and hate towards the people who need community support the most. The doom loop narrative invites calls for heavy policing, criminalization, and facilities to lock away society's undesirables by the very privileged few who have gentrified and exacerbated affordability and social networks. Behind these campaigns are tech billionaires, real estate moguls, secretive super PACs, and niche organizing names like Neighbors Together Oakland. The best insight into the ruling class's direction is to review the recent political dynamics of San Francisco. The city had already recalled its newly elected progressive district attorney, DA, in a campaign fueled by manipulation of fears of anti-Asian hate, grab-and-go theft of near empty stores, and rising crime. The narrative push affects state and local politics, pushing traditional neoliberal politicians further to the right. School board councils are also a target of the same conservative activists who attacked critical race theory as racism against white people and started mass book bannings. The same tactics and circle of ruling class activists are aiming for Oakland next, with attempts to recall the newly elected progressive DA Pamela Price and Mayor Shane Tao. Much of the ruling class's animosity is toward the local is tied to the local police unions. Excuse me, let me do that. Much of the ruling class's animosity is tied to the local police unions, which supported mayoral and DA candidates who lost. Immediately following the election, attacks towards Price and Tao flooded Twitter X. The people who push the narrative that Price and Tao would do nothing to reduce crime are reposting and supported by the ex-CEO, one of the wealthiest men on earth, Elon Musk, as well as Y Combinator tech CEO Gary Tan, who has said there is a need to get rid of progressive leadership in San Francisco and Oakland. I said this was going to be intense. I'm So sorry. After another scandal with the Oakland Police Department, former police chief LeRon Armstrong stalled the end of over 20 years of federal department oversight. Armstrong participated in a cover-up of an officer hit-and-run incident. Mayor Tao fired Armstrong last year, and Armstrong has insisted on being reinstated since. The propagandists reason that this is a good reason to recall Tao as complicit in allowing crime to run rampant in Oakland. In April 2023, the Alameda County DA office charged Officer Fong Tran with perjury and threatening a witness. A year later, Oaklanside reported that 8 officers, including 4 commanders, allegedly botched an examination of bribery and perjury charges against a homicide investigation, which, by the way, if an officer is pretty much bribing witnesses to testify against suspects, that messes up the case so much that the district attorney has to let the case go. They have to let them free because it's unconstitutional. So even if they did the crime, that means if they committed a murder, if they committed a rape, and the police, bribed a suspect, guess what? They messed up the whole case. The defense wins. So in June of this year, Oaklanside revealed former Chief LeRon Armstrong and his immediate successor, Darren Allison, were investigated and faulted for leadership failures. Armstrong and Allison failed to ensure OPD's Internal Affairs Division rigorously and fairly examined the accusations against the detective. Investigators concluded Armstrong and Allison both fell short in their authority and responsibilities as commanding officers. In April this year, Price also filed manslaughter charges against 3 Alameda cops in the death of Mario Gonzalez in April 2021. The previous Alameda County District Attorney, Nancy O'Malley, had refused to charge the 3 officers. Recently, Price has been, I need to rewrite this part too. Damn, I need an editor. So recently, 2 Oakland police officers with DUIs also were accused of hit and run and attempted to report their car stolen falsely. That needs to be reflected. When Price assumed office in January 2023, she established the Public Accountability Unit and reopened cases involving police officers that her predecessor had investigated and declined to prosecute. With police accountability from Oakland Mayor Tao and Alameda County DA Price, the Alameda County Police unions support the recall Price. The recall campaigns have worked in coordination not only to tarnish and delegitimize both the mayor and the DA, but they have also gone after other progressives up for election. Congressional candidate Latifah Simmons, who is running to replace Barbara Lee right now. So Barbara Lee is retiring, and she's been in that position in, this is like the Oakland district. She's been there for a long time. So this is like a major deal. West Oakland City Council member Carol Fife, they've been attacking her like crazy. And she is the one that she was the one that successfully did the Moms for Housing. If you guys remember back in 2019, 2020, she was the director of ACE, and the Moms for Housing, the moms took over the house. It was like a coordinated effort, and they actually successfully won getting that house. And anyways, so they've been going after her, and also Alameda supervisor candidate Nikki Fortunato Bass. All advocates for housing not just at an affordable level, but accessible level for all. This is why police unions, real estate, landlord lobbies, tech billionaires, and coal interests have poured immensely toxic campaign efforts to discredit these women of color from leadership roles. And that's pretty much it. And then I added like some general solutions. So this is like, I know it's super long, but it's for reference. I don't expect any of my stuff to be popular or, people to be really thrilled about it right away, because you have to take your time to actually look at it. I'm not somebody who's trying to get people into my stuff. Like if you snoozed, I'm fine with that. I don't care. If you check it out later, that's fine. I'm live streaming because I don't have time to do a bunch of editing and all that kind of stuff. And if people come in and chat and ask questions, then that's great. But I will probably do this more often every time I write. Just come down, live stream bomb, read one of my stories, and then edit it and put it into the story. So if anybody wants to read it or listen to it instead, they can do that. If anybody wants to participate, they can do that. They can ask questions as well. I welcome it. So I don't know, Raina, if you are even paying attention at this point, but I'm about to end this because I've been talking for like 30 minutes. That was a long read, and I know that was intense, and it was a lot. It was heavy. I don't mean to weigh it so heavy on a heavy night. But I will say, I think Kamala Harris is going to win, and I think everything's going to be all right. I don't know. I don't feel like worried or stressed for some reason.